Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. The rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
This world has changed and I had to accept it. They ask my political views while I search for their hidden agendas. I don't got an answer, I try to remember the devil divides. Pressure appears from our peers. Those arguments waste our time while helping to push their lies, so fuck political views. I got common sense. I know God made man, and the sun sets on a life where we focus on things that we cannot control and accumulate so much regret. By the time we decide to live, we're practically already dead. So I go to sleep with the thoughts of 45 years living in debt, 45 years can't pay rent, 45 years just for a pension. I'm too old to enjoy and go spend 45 years working and slaving for rich men with no time for my family and friends. Then I'll wake up and pray that it ends.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. The rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Descendants of Adam and Eve, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're taking God out the schools. Our kids don't know what to believe. From 6 to 18, the curriculum fails and Gen Z gets taught by their phones with force feeds that get sponsored and paid by companies. That's how they attack us, it starts with the youth. If you lie enough, you'll convince anybody the lie's the truth. So telling these kids they can choose their own gender at ages they can't even tie their own shoes. Drive or drink is crazy. Common sense isn't common unless it pays me. That's the thought process daily. Look at the content we're creating, lies diluting our brains. I'm done trying to argue online with these people who think that a vote's gonna bring about change. How many presidents does it take to have a life worth living? An actual comfortable wage. No more school shootings. Let's unite these states.
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Happy hump day, everyone. Oh, let me see if I can stop that for a moment. Okay, there we go. I have to tell you, we're living in some very, very, very tumultuous times. Godfather, if you'd like to join me, you may be the prayer I was looking for today. In the meantime, folks, I see I have something here. I thank you, Godfather. I always start out, of course, with a quote. I sometimes am blessed with, believe it or not, some of the most fabulous quotes. And every now and then, right now in my life, I've been struggling, and I even have one or two to add to me for me. So when you dare to challenge life, you will live life fully. Again, when you dare to challenge life, you will live life fully. You know, that's the whole thing. How many of us are willing to challenge life, the life around us? How many of us are willing to step out of what would be considered a social norm? And then the big question is, what exactly is norm? I had the blessing this week to have a gentleman that I interviewed several weeks ago, Paul Venable. You can look him up on Facebook. He was a candidate for Senate of Missouri. He is the chairman of the Constitutional Party. This man drove at the very last minute yesterday, 3.5 hours. His home is actually about 2.5 hours. Like most of us, I say most, we rely on Google Maps. Unfortunately, Google Map took him a little bit further away than he wanted to be. And you know, he still managed to make it anyway. He was a man on a mission. He wasn't going to let it stop him from coming. Now, why was he wanting to come? Sorry for the glare. I should have dropped my shade. Why was he willing to come 2.5 to 3.5 hours just to come here to visit myself? I'll tell you why. He wanted to have his voice heard. He wanted to have his freedom of speech at a Cameron school board in Cameron, Missouri. That would be a Cameron school board meeting, to be precise. And you know, you have to request an audience with the superintendent, Matt Robinson. His Excellency, as I like to call him. Comrade is really what he is, but His Excellency. And then within 5 days, you will be notified as to whether or not, and you've got to sit in front of him and tell him what you want to talk about. And within 5 days, folks, he may or he may not allow you to speak what is concerning you, a citizen of the Cameron Community School District. Mind you, he has already decreed, His Excellency Matt Robinson has already decreed that only the residents of Cameron R1 School District is allowed to have a voice at those meetings. What he's actually doing is this. When you speak with him, you are allowing him your game plan. In allowing him your game plan, he now knows how to battle you, how to come up with the answers, which of course you don't want to hear. I am confident of that. because it's the wrong solutions always. And how is it always the wrong solution? Because His Excellency, Matt Robinson, he will just say it's school policy, as is the case. He can actually say only those who live in the school district of Cameron can speak at the school board meeting, but they must have his eminent consent. You know, that's very troubling. That's taking away the freedom of speech, our First Amendment. Everyone and anyone who is a concerned citizen who steps into that meeting on that night, if they wish to express what is a concern or heavy upon their mind, they should be allowed to do so. Why is that? Again, it's called the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, to be exact. For many who don't know what that is, I'm not insulting my audience, mind you, but there are many people, I'd say 35 and under, that don't have a clue about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights at all. Technically, in every public school, the Bill of Rights are to be posted, legibly seen, legibly able to be read publicly by every single student, parent, and person, citizen of the United States, legal to be able to read. They're not in one school building that I'm aware of here in Cameron. But then again, I'm not allowed in any of the school buildings, being a tax-paying citizen of Missouri, for which to make sure policy, or proper policy in this case, is followed, which is, again, to have the Bill of Rights on a wall for someone to read. They have taken away prayer, the teachers, let me be more specific, the school board, the teachers, those that are in charge. They've taken away prayer. They've taken away the Pledge of Allegiance, something that unifies, not divides, but unifies the American people. And in this case, the kids in school, when they place their hand over their hearts and they say their Pledge of Allegiance. I'll give you my Pledge of Allegiance right at the moment. I pledge allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America and to the republic for which the flag stands, one nation under Almighty God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That is my version of the Pledge of what the Pledge of Allegiance should be. That's my freedom, my right to say that. And if you were to share it, offer it, give it, I hope you would. Because we shouldn't be pledging allegiance to an inanimate object, which is a beautiful flag. Don't get me wrong, beautiful flag. But we should pledge our allegiance to the United States Constitution. That document that our forefathers, young and old, from the ages of 12, 14 years old, up to 80 plus, 56 men wrote that. Many lost their lives. Many lost their freedoms of their property. It's very, very sad that these children are not taught that. But getting back to the excellency of the school board superintendent, Matt Robinson, Paul Venable, like I said, is a very respected man. He's a very well-spoken man. He's a man with much self-respect and respect more so for others. He dared, he really did want to dare to speak, but he wasn't allowed. Since I'm a tax-paying citizen, I live outside the district, I'm not allowed. He did say, though, Paul, to me, there's a chance, Vince, I might get arrested tonight. And he was prepared. But he wanted to maybe get a little bit more information. He's thinking about residency in the Cameron area. So, in order for him to speak, I'm going to draw up a document. It's called a lease agreement for him to stay for a month, next month in November, so he can look at property. Again, he's 2.5 hours away currently. So he can look at property, meet the people, and also know whether or not the school is a place he would like to put his child in. Fact of the matter is, I doubt he would do that. But I'm going to draw up a lease, which will be legal, giving him 1 month's living here. And I'm not and my friend who he will be staying with, of course, in the school board district, we're only going to charge him $1. That's how you beat them at their own game. Because legally speaking, with that lease agreement, he is a resident, though temporary as it is, of the Cameron School Board. But he reached out to several members, of which I'm closely associated with, very closely associated with. Heath Gilbert, Dan Landy, Paula Allen. He had great conversation and dialogue. To say the least, he wanted to also see how the school board received those 3 people who, by the way, actually had the permission. They were granted the permission by His Excellency to speak on topics only that he allows. My producer, one of our producers, Chad Candy, I love you. Chad and I were talking a couple weeks ago, as always. And he brought to my attention, he said, Vince, you've backed off the news quite a bit. Right now, if you go on the news, all they're showing is what's going on in Israel. And tragic as it is, I'd still like to know what's going on here in America. I had to get the news off of MSNBC, I think it is, to where I could see a Phillies fan running in a field get completely sacked, squashed to the ground. I had to get all the news how Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary of the White House, violates the media and only calls upon who she wants to hear from. That's called not letting the American people know or be informed through media what is actually going on with the most vile, evil, corrupt president and family in the history of America that I've ever known of. A family that has gotten away with so much. Thank goodness, to my knowledge, I don't believe they've killed anyone yet. Clintons have. Oh, people say you can't say it. Yes, I can. 211, starting with Vince Carter, an attorney, out in the park in the middle of the day, supposedly committing suicide. And the list is long and it's big. And it's even been after Slick Willie left office. In fact, it was just as recent as the past 2 years. And when you think about Jeffrey Epstein, I'm not a fan of that man by no stretch of the imagination. The little bit that I know about him and his girlfriend, Griselle, I think Maxwell, I got to tell you, they are vile, evil people in politics right now. They are going after one of the greatest presidents ever. We know that. We see it. I just read on a news blurb again. A woman that's holding a megaphone was given a real hefty sentence just for being on a megaphone at the riot, the insurrection of the Capitol, which again, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, never should have happened had Nancy Pelosi listened to her sergeant at arms who was relaying messages from the director of the Capitol Police, the chief of the Capitol Police. She failed in her job to protect the representatives that were gathered at the Capitol. Donald J. Trump, if you want to know the facts, spoke to the mayor of Washington, D.C. And that mayor refused to bring in more National Guards. You've got the DOJ, the FBI protecting Hunter Biden. We know he's guilty of sin. He belongs behind bars like so many other men, and I'm sure a few women, who have violated the proper procedure for which to purchase a sidearm, a gun, in short. This is, and these are the days of which we live. It makes my heart heavy. And if any of you think that this is baloney or bullshit that I'm feeding you, rest assured. I'm going to put up a couple of these. The Godfather, El Comandante. I love it. Hey, Crystal, how are you? Glad to see you here, dear. I'm starting to teach my 5-year-old about the Bill of Rights. He can state the Pledge of Allegiance word for word, clearly as well already at 5. That's called good parenting, preparing the child for school. Let's hope the teachers will enforce this. Here in Iowa, Arlington, Parkersburg School teaches the pledge every day. God bless that school. If that's the case, you send that kid to that school. And there you are, Chad. And of course, Ruth, love you both so very much. But getting back to Paul. Paul was prepared to go to jail. He wanted to basically say, I am a citizen. I have the freedom of speech. You're going to listen to me. But instead, he wanted to observe. And what he observed was what we all observe. In every small town, in every city in this country, I don't care where you go, where you're at. In most every single one, I'm not going to say 100%, but I can tell you right now, it's well above 85%. And how do I know that? Just pick a state, pick a town, read their paper. Parents that are concerned are not going to be listened to. In our town, we have staff members that are reaching out to parents to come in and speak at school board meetings, but they won't allow the parents that want to speak at the school board meetings. Let me tell you a little something else about His Excellency Matt Robinson. Matt Robinson, like I said, wants to know your game plan so he can counter. Art of War. Good book. The Art of War. In short, they will in turn talk about a subject of policy and they will pass it before any parents have a clue of what they're doing. They will pass policy without parents being able to vote on, address, or speak intelligently about. They won't let us know their game plan. They just make the rules as they see fit and as they go along. Chad, I remember you saying to me, again, you kind of gotten offbeat a little bit, Vince. You're really about your community. And I can't agree with you more, sir. I do. I agree with you more. Who really cares about Cameron? Well, guess what, folks? I do. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, traveled around homeless for 40 years pretty much before I finally found a home of which I think I would be content in. That's for another show, by the way. Our overlords will tell us what their opinions are supposed to be. This is Heath Gilbert. Follow him. Follow him on Cameron R1 School District Exposed. I will try to get that written down in the banner so you can actually follow along with Heath. A remarkable citizen. He's like any other parent, worried, concerned, and in fear. I'm going to use the word for him. He's never said that to me, but I believe in my conversation and dialogue with him for 1 year and 1 day. I believe he feels the same way I do. So let me go this route. I am in fear of what these teachers are doing to our children. If I'm in fear, I'm pretty much 99.9% positive that Mr. Gilbert is. Why do I say that? He has dedicated his time morning, noon, and night. I don't want to use a phrase to go after the school board, but he wants to correct the course of what this administration has done. i.e., I'll give you a very quick example. You smell a kid coming in. Girl smells good with perfume. The boy smells like, well, a jockstrap because he's been exercising at the gym. So, you know, the sweaty smell. And then you smell the kid that comes in smelling like pot. They don't drug test him because it's a choice that the teacher has. And yet when you have a child that wants to park their car on the property with proper stickers, identification, that child who doesn't even think about touching pot can randomly be tested any day of the week, anytime they want, just because they want to be in control. They want to take away that child's rights as a citizen. Now, if you suspect a child, yes, you smell a child, you should drug test them, yet they don't. And now, I believe it was at the last board meeting last night, they were talking about the school dances. They're not going to drug test other students from other schools that attend the school dances or that attend the sporting events of football, what have you, basketball. But they will test just because they want to be an authority figure to be feared. Tell you what, I believe a teacher should be respected. Dan Landy brought a part. Dan Landy was allowed to speak about video cameras. He brought a point, a little tongue-tied for the moment. He brought a point that was, to say the least, exceptional. True, law enforcement agents now, most of them, a lot of them, have cameras, video cameras, to protect not only themselves, but to protect the individual that might be suspect to a nefarious situation, be it speeding, be it a bank robbery, being a rape, assault, what have you. They've got to protect themselves and, of course, their own meager attempt to protect that citizen that they are apprehending. Dan Landy said, for $20,000 to $50,000, why can't we put just a closed circuit TV video camera in every single one of the classes, only to be viewed at a later time if an event came out, let's say a brawl, to find out what student or what teacher may have started that fight. The looks on the teachers' faces were horrific. They were horrified at the thought that Big Brother might be watching them. But you know what he was actually pointing out? The LEA has those cameras for one reason, and one reason in particular: to make sure that that law enforcement agent is not overstepping his boundaries. It keeps them in check. It makes them a better police officer. It makes them cognitive of their actions in hopes that, of course, always their actions are respectful. But the teachers, if they were caught on video camera, we would see perhaps some that shouldn't even be holding a piece of chalk on the chalkboard. If they even have blackboards anymore. They probably got rid of them because they probably consider blackboards to be racist. But you know, you would get a good idea of whether that teacher is competent to teaching our children. You would get a very good, clear picture as to whether or not that teacher is teaching the children the way they're supposed to, the topics and subjects of what they're supposed to teach them. And we all know, we would like to think that they would just stick with the basics, the basic foundation, the basic fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic, of which, no, it's CRT. It's SEL, social emotional learning. It's human sexuality. I understand that phrase that they're using for K through 3 graders. I still don't like it. Personally, I don't like it. But that's my opinion. But they are so far removed from teaching the proper education that this year alone in the state of Missouri, of which I live, the GPA has gone down 0.3%. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when children are barely proficient in mathematics or in English or in history, they are barely proficient. It's evident in our society. And I'll tell you how it's evident. On my way last night to the school board meeting, I was going down a one-way street. There were a couple vehicles in front of me. Oh, and there was one in particular that caught my attention, driving the wrong way. Granted, you're new to a town, you might drive the wrong way. Maybe you didn't see that little sign that says do not enter. Maybe you didn't see the other signs that said, hey, one way. Maybe you didn't have the knowledge or common sense to see that all the cars seem to be parking in such a direction that they are arriving into the parking spaces as you are going against being able to park in any of those parking spaces. As I approached the car, I did. I got in its way. Not enough to block it, enough to slow it down. And as it rolled on by me, if that kid behind the wheel was 18, I'd be surprised. But how does a parent give a kid that's so stupid, allow him to drive a vehicle? I don't get it. Here we go. No random drug test for employees, only the students. And there are no chalkboards in this high school. It is important if the school refuses to teach things such as cursive. It's our duty as parents to teach this to our children. I want my children to have a personal signature. And you know what, Don Corleone, I've got to tell you something, brother. I don't get too embarrassed when I'm at the checkout stand, but when I sign for a signature on a piece of paper, I like the women that usually say, gosh, your handwriting is so pretty, or it's so beautiful. My signature, that is. That's all I'm signing on it. It's a receipt. We all sign them. But it's really kind of embarrassing when you've got like a 6-foot guy, hairy, blah, 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 who's standing behind you, and he says, wow, dude, you've got a really cool signature. Or, wow, man, that's nice handwriting. It's embarrassing because it's a man saying it to me. I get it to a degree. I think I understand. But really, that's a compliment, and I usually thank them for it. And I said, well, that's Catholic school for you. And I give credit where it's due. It was Catholic school. And then eventually, once I hit second grade in military school, it was military school. But I had to learn how to write. I had to learn how to spell. I'm going to have an episode soon as I get a scanner, because I would like to show you what a doctor of theology's handwriting looks like. Yeah, the doctor that sits on the school board. I am amazed, though. Verbally, he can put together sentences well across the board. He doesn't. The toadstool doesn't really say much, but his handwriting. Oh my God! The spelling errors. Oh my Lord! And the incorrect paragraphs that this person wrote. Dan Kirscher, by the way, is incredulous. This guy has a doctorate degree. Granted, it's in theology. But he has a doctorate degree, and his handwriting is deplorable. If I had to grade it, I'd have to give him an F minus. I couldn't even give him a medium F. There is no way he would get even a medium F. It would be F minus, F, or an F plus. He would get an F minus, and I'd probably send him back to class. If this is a leadership of which we are under in these schools, in this particular community that I live in, if this is any indication of the leadership of this staff, we're doomed. And you know, some people have asked me as of lately, Vince, you've picked up a banner. I remember Heath. Oh, okay. Heath says that he is a retired teacher on top of that. I guess he taught cartoons or art because he did not teach English. That I can promise you. And if he did, now I know why a young man drives in the wrong direction. That's a result of his parents probably can't even read because they probably went to school while he was a teacher. But you know, it's very sad. It truly is sad. He did, and it was cursive. Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. Yeah, you saw a document that I was given. Maybe he was driver's instructor. Yeah, maybe he was. And again, a failure to our children. But, you know, everyone has asked me as of late, and I mean within the past couple of months in particular, why have I taken up this banner? The banner for children. Well, I used to tell Heath and many other members of friends of mine and members of society that I'd meet, I had no dog in the fight. I had no children in the fight of the school education. I was blessed April 14th. That is my son's second birthday. I was blessed to find out that I had a 33-year-old son. And in August, he turned 34. And poof, poof, just like that. They grow up so quick. But seriously, thank goodness he's well-spoken. Thank goodness he knows how to write. And thank goodness he turned his life over to God when he was in his teens, because he didn't have that male role model in his life. And the few that he did, by his mother's choice of boyfriends, some of those men really weren't the best. So he did learn from them too, of what not to be. Much like myself with my biological father, who died when I was 6 years old. I knew I did not want to be an alcoholic, and I knew I did not want to hit my children and beat my wife. That's what I remember of my father. He had two good sides to him, though. Being a Libra, I try to find that balance. He could work with his hands, build, fabricate anything. And he had a multitude of friends. He had very, very good friends. So I think I kind of acquired that because I may only have about, I'm going to say probably 30 to 40 really close friends. And people say, how can you have that many? Well, I do. I have friends I can call up in the middle of the night and say, hey, I need your ear. And they're there. I have friends that will help me if I need it. They'll listen to me if I want. If I visit, their doors are open to me with a key extended. And that is what it's about. It's about friendships. And these children are not building strong, solid social friendships. In fact, in friendships, sometimes we have to have that class bully. It happens. Eventually, he does get his. John Dillon, do you remember me in 11th grade? I'll bet you do. You were the biggest one of 7, and I addressed you first. A couple days later, I went to school. Some guy's out there smoking illegally, just like I was. And he says, "What's your name?" I said, "Vincent." He goes, "Vince what?" I said, "Cooper." He goes, "Vinny, are you the one that took Dylan out?" I said, "Yep." And I was afraid for a moment. I thought he was going to probably want to, well, help his friend Dylan. Thank goodness he said, "Thank you." He lives in my neighborhood. Steve Hanlon. He said, he lives in my neighborhood. He's been a bully in the neighborhood for years. Thank you for doing that. And Steve and I have been friends ever since 78. To this day, I still love my friend. But it's like, yeah, here we go. We now have cybernetic relationships, and we all know it's a little troll doll of some sort that you think you're cute with them bouncing around and clapping, and you bopping back and forth, going side to side. There's no personalization or person socialization. Very well put. No personalization or person socialization. But again, we have to have those bullies every now and then. And then we've got the little jokesters in school. Let's face it. I was a class clown at times. I had Ralph Knipp, Robert Schmidt. I'm trying to think of the names right now real quick. Richard Schmidt, Papard. Never forget Papard. Can't remember his first name offhand yet. But those 3 guys and myself were the class clowns. We poked fun with all the boys in school. This is a Catholic school in high school. And so, we jab them in the side. We, did little noogie things and purple nerpies. If you guys know what a purple nurple is, that's pinching the chest of another boy. And we had fun. That's the way it goes. But I'll tell you what these teachers have done around our country. We hear suicide rates of children. I'm going to get very serious here for a moment. It's going to get a little graphic. No names will, of course, be spoken. I don't care to do that. But a freshman who had a girlfriend joking around with another girl took his pen, poked the little girl on her bottom. I don't know whether it was going to from class or in class. Don't know the circumstances. But they were going to charge this 14-year-old with sexual harassment. By the way, I know that phrase. I know that situation all too well. It's an ugly, ugly, ugly word. I got to tell you, that 14-year-old boy lost his girlfriend, and shortly thereafter, just literally 3 days ago, he took his own life, hanging himself. All because most likely he was just playing, having a little fun. Do I think he was sexually harassing that little girl? Absolutely, positively not. Now, then again, I don't know the kid well enough at all. Maybe he's got a history of doing things as such. I doubt it, because it sounded like it was a one-time situation. A lot of us, and myself, want and have sent prayers out to the family. Naturally, it is the right thing to do. But sadly enough, I'm going to go one step further. You can pray for them all you want. That boy was tormented. I am sad that the mother or the father didn't really know And do I think they should have known his mental disposition at the time? Yes. I think they should have known that he was struggling. I mean, I imagine, I'm just going to say this. I can't say that, I cannot believe that he was saying, ha 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 ha, I'm in trouble for sexual harassment because I cannot see that. I see a boy that's probably struggling, in fear, afraid, going to go to prison for the rest of his life. He's watched the news. He sees the internet. He knows what happens to the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. He didn't have the tools mentally, emotionally, and he didn't have those parents that were maybe needing to be a little bit more attentive, not allowing him to be by himself, keeping a watchful eye. From tragedy, we can learn. And I would hope that if someone is listening out there, and you've got that child that's undergoing a situation similar as such, please, mom, take that child and keep him to your bosom. Dad, put him back under your arm and protect him. Reassure him to be strong. Reassure him it's going to be okay. And fight, parents. Fight for that child. Fight with everything you've got. Surely these parents of this particular child out of the Maysville, Missouri area, I will give that, which is only a stone's throw away from Cameron. Again, rural America, please, if you have a child that's struggling because of a situation as such, perhaps a one, maybe a second time occurrence, I can't imagine. I know one thing that helped correct me, and I'm not saying it works for everyone: corporal punishment. I had a waffle paddle across my keister more than you could ever imagine, and I deserved it. Maybe not all the time, but I did deserve it. Why? Because I was a knucklehead. I was a mushroom. I was someone that wouldn't take orders, listen to authority, wouldn't do as I was told. There are limitations of doing what you're told, i.e., you have a teacher that says, come into the back room with me, little boy. Chances are that ain't going to go well. And we see it. We see teachers that get busted left and right for having sex with minors. That's harassment. That's exploitation. That's rape. That's an assault. That's wrong. Here we go. I got my ass swatted. Now I suffer from respect for the law, elders, and know right from wrong. Yeah, that's what happened. That's precisely what happened even to me. I get it. I get it. Very well said. Some of us need to be hit like that. Some of us need to be struck like that. But the child that's actually undergoing a situation as I just described needed to be watched technically 24/7 until the parents were rest assured that the child was gaining some strength, that the child wasn't struggling. I know I'm offering parental advice. I never raised a child. I will never forgive myself for not being in my son's life. He's okay with that. But as they say, sometimes genes are strong. I was very blessed that my genes and his mother genes were strong enough so that when I met him at the age of 33, he had never even so much as had a speeding ticket. He had never really dabbled in drugs. He drinks a little bit every now and then, just like any young college boy did or would. You know, he had a share of girlfriends, but you can rest assured he changed his life at one point when he almost got in fear of being trapped, thinking that he had gotten a girl pregnant, and that changed his life altogether. He said, I'm going to abstain until I'm married. And he did. I'm so proud of him. 3 years he dated his wife, and then they consummated the marriage. It's a value I didn't teach them, but it's a value the Bible did. Sadly, we allow these teachers to bring pornography, teaching children about homosexuality in those books, in writing, and in some cases, even with drawings. And these teachers, they push it. I now say the kids are no longer getting an education. They're getting an indoctrination of education. They're taught not how to think, but what to think. They're told everything they want, they can have. Anything they want to do, they can. And that's why we have these unruly kids. I watched the thing on the news the other day, again on MSNBC, on the, or whatever it is, the webpage. And by the way, folks, I'm an idiot on a computer, but I'm just saying for my news feed, I guess. I watched this kid, 12 years old, 13 years old, having a temper tantrum. The teachers had 4 by 4 foot, 4 foot by 4 foot, 4 to 6 inch thick foam padding, kind of like a shield, you put up in a riot to protect yourself. And this kid was on the ground kicking like there was no tomorrow at the teacher's legs. Do I think that was a good thing? No. It was horrible. It was wrong. But I also wonder if was a behavior he was taught by his parents. Maybe daddy likes to do that to mommy, use her as a punching bag. Thus, therefore, this kid felt as though he could use the teachers as a punching bag. It is. It is. It's truly heartbreaking. Oh, here we go. Padded rooms. My son's school has a padded room like that. And we understand. What do we have here? Sister Mary Beth would have just picked my from the tuft of the back of the hair and resolve the situation, bring back the nuns. Oh, if I could also tell you something else. They had pointer sticks, wood, made with little rubber tips, probably not even the size of my thumb, 2 inches, okay? They would poke you. I mean, you're 2 aisles away. Boom. They were like fence. They had the art of fencing down. If no one knows what the art of fencing is, that is called sword fighting. You don and pat it, protection gear, face mask, all 9 yards, and you actually sword fight one another. And these nuns were good. I mean, they were good. They had metal rulers. They would crack across your knuckles, across the back of your hands, or smack the palm of your hands. I.e., example, if you were a southpaw. No one knows what a southpaw is. It's an individual that uses their left hand. And literally, they would whack your hand so hard that it stung for 2 days. They'd whack your thigh, they'd whack your bottom. And again, you'd have a hard time sitting for a day or two. Oh, you sat down, but you weren't comfortable. And it was always a nice reminder of why you were not comfortable sitting down. I think Don Corleone said it very well. It taught you the waffle paddle. It taught you respect. So what are we going to do in our schools with these children that are so out of hand and most likely come from, and this was what Paul Venable had said to me, they most likely come from either a single parent home or they come from a 2-parent home where both of the parents are working and there's no way to establish the perimeters, the mama. As I like to say, Mama ain't happy, nobody happy. She sets the law. Dad is to provide and protect, and if need be the enforcer of mama's laws. That would be ideally perfect if that was the case. Oh, that would be ideal, of course, if that was the case. But what are we going to do? How are we going to redirect the ship that's so out of whack, so out of course from this excellency superintendent king, Matt Robinson, which, by the way, with grade point averages being decreased in the graduating class of 2022, this knucklehead, this mushroom, this narcissistic, self-absorbed, gotta watch my words, he gets a pay raise for having kids graduate from school that are no better off in 12th grade than they were in perhaps maybe 4th grade. Yes, I did say that. You'd be lucky if you have these 12th graders that have an educational level, and I'm just going to go out on a limb, of maybe 6th to 8th grade. Paul Venable saw that. He knows this. He's a father himself. He speaks to people all over the country. He speaks to people within the community of which he lives and the district of which he wants to represent. Who knows? Maybe he will be, if he does decide to move to Cameron, maybe he'll be willing to come here and represent as a Senate here. Take care of Rusty Black. Rusty Black, no good. But let me go one step further. Dean Van Schoik, District 9 State Representative. Shame, shame, shame on you. Shame on your staff members that called your office only to be dismissed and told they're not interested in talking to you. And Dean Van Schoik writes this letter, this excuse, reason, and justification for why he doesn't want to get involved. And his reason was simply this: it's not my job. You are a state representative. You work with the legislative branch of government in the state of Missouri. It is your job, Dean Van Schoik, to change, amend, whatever you want to call it, laws that are currently useless, in short. You know, I'm going to go back up here. I guess his son, he ran out of his meds and had been being bad. He put himself in there today, then yelled at the teacher to let him out. You missed my son being a real turd while you were here, Vince. Well, your son was, you know, he's still a young kid. He's struggling. He's going through some growing pains. You know that as well as I do. And we know your son. I know of your son. And it's understandable. No sons are perfect. Well, listening to my son's mother, she told me flat out he never did give her a problem. But Chad goes on to say how kids are different, though. My son is below grade average because of the way he acts, and he might get held back. My daughter is way above her grade average and might skip a grade. I've seen that happen with kids. I had Troy Sims. Remember, I was in 4th grade, and he was taken out of 4th grade in the beginning of the school year, and he was placed, I believe, in either 5th or 6th grade. That's how smart that young man was. And then he went on, and Chad goes on to say, when I worked at Florida Blue, we were all told to tell the people, it's not my job all the time. And here we go. There's also a lot scientifically they have linked to Red 40 and Red 3 to behavioral issues. If you don't know what that is, that would be a food coloring additive that they place in things like, i.e., example, Red Bull, if I'm not mistaken, Mountain Dew, and certain other products, probably Pibb has it. Dr. Pepper, I think it's called, or Mr. Pibb or something. But we cut those out of the diet for our ADH son, and he did 180-degree behavioral change. Isn't that amazing? You know, folks, again, I'm talking with two parents. You guys know these guys as well as I do. You see them here weekly at this point. And thank you again, all of you, for being here. You know, these are two men that are involved in their child's lives. It's tough, parents. I'm not going to say it's not, to find that time with the family. But you know what? Somewhere along the line, you got to stop. You got to stop your own self-pleasures. And no, I'm not talking about what most of you guys are thinking of, going into the gutter or into a real nice silky set of sheets. But seriously, you've got to stop watching basketball, baseball, football on TV. Instead of being a spectator of sports, you should be more of a participator. Maybe try picking up the baseball bat with a ball, wiffle ball, if it's the kids too young for regular baseball, and go out and play with them. Teach them that they can't always be the champion, that they are, in fact, going to have to realize that they could be very well a loser. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because you know what? That kid may not be good in baseball. I'm going to tell you right now, that kid may not be good in baseball. But after you try basketball, tennis, hockey, football, track and field events. He's great with the shot put. He's great with the hammer. He can throw a javelin. Hey, guess what? You now know what your son or daughter are capable of doing. And so then you work on those strengths instead of drinking beer, hanging out with the guys, eating pizza or barbecue, watching a football game. I used to tell people myself, I am not a spectator of sports. I'm a participator. I.e. example, I don't watch porn. I create porn. I make the movies. I'm just kidding. It's a good laugh line, though. It is when you think about it. Then again, you really don't want to see me there, I'm sure. I'd be a beach whale and they'd be stuffing me back into the ocean. But seriously speaking, folks, to be a participator means to be a participator in your children's lives. To be actively involved. Don Corleone spoke earlier saying, hey, guess what? Guess what? I got involved in my child's diet and altered it and changed it. I'm involved with my child's speech. He can actually say the Pledge of Allegiance. I am teaching my child how to write because the teachers aren't doing their jobs, because cursive was taken out of school in 2010 under the Obama administration. Fact, henceforth, POTI, I like it, purveyor of truthful information, POTI. You can thank Obama for that one, for making our kids not challenge themselves. It's kind of funny that a lot of times my quotes that I choose from either the internet, well, somewhere on the internet, usually tie into a lot of the programs that I'm speaking about. In fact, I'd say almost 95% of them. But think about it. If we dare not, let me go back to it just to make sure I've got it correct. I'm sorry, I just don't like to be wrong. When you dare to challenge life, you will live life fully. Something I came up with today, personally. When you dare to challenge life, you will live life fully. When you dare to take that child and place them into a sport and they're not doing well, that's okay. That's living life fully. Baseball may not be for them, but stick a basketball in their hand, they might be doing hoop shots all day long. But it's up to you as a parent. It's up to you to be more attentive to your children, not only in play, but again, in work. And what is work for the child? It's education. If you don't get a hold of this now in your own homes and start telling these teachers, this is what you want your child to learn, and this is what you want your child to read. In other words, let's stick with the basics of Shakespeare. Let's just stick with that one. We don't need to learn about homosexuality. I.e., example, hypothetically speaking, that means I'm playing pretend here. If I have a son that thinks they're attracted to another boy, the principal, teacher, superintendent is going to tell you to read this book, have your son read this book, so you both can accept, understand, and maybe embrace and enjoy my son's advances to your son. If the shoe were on the other foot, I have to tell you, it'd be tough to stop me from going to jail for beating the living daylights out of a father, wanting to get my mitts on the kid that's going after my kid, wanting to. I'd be hard pressed to say I wouldn't be angry. I think that would be probably just about everyone and anyone's right of understanding. Sometimes parents have to hear things that have happened to their children, and they've got to button up, and they've got to say, my God, that happened to my little boy. That happened to my little girl. And I'm talking real assaults. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have had a situation go through to the end. And yet in military school, I had two. Malcolm Gillier, Pete Stewart. Hope you guys have had a great life, but you both, one graduated from the school. He was in a Big Brother program, Pete Stewart. I was 12 years old. He was 18. Wanted to touch me, so on and so forth. I reported him. And a couple months later, right as school was starting in 7th grade, sixth grade, I got beat up by a whole group of his classmates because I snitched on him. I tattletaled on him. I told the teachers what had happened. Thank goodness nothing ever went through all the way. Malcolm Gilliard, he was a different dog altogether. I thought he had a knife in my back. He had a pencil, told me to drop trousers. I undid my belt, and I just ran. Ran in the tunnels where I wasn't supposed to be. We were all down there. Well, we'd all go as a group. I just happened to go down there with him. And it could have been an ugly situation. I can't even imagine what a child goes through. I don't want to imagine. But as parents, we are faced with this today. And it's not just an occasional thing. 40 years ago, we didn't have the internet. 40 years ago, we didn't know that Mr. Robinson, oh, I don't like using that name. Mr. Kershaw, oh, I don't like using that name. Mr. Lanigan, I don't want to use that name. But Mr. Smith, we never would want to think that Mr. Smith was violating our little boy Dennis, who was a menace. But it happened. And a lot of times it just went on in life. It was whatever it was. It was never spoken about again, whatever it was. And these closet pedophiles got away with it for the better part. Thank goodness the 90s turned around in DNA. Thank goodness shortly thereafter, the internet came around. Now it puts it in our face every flipping day. I.e., example, this young boy that took his own life. I found out from just in passing conversation with a woman that met me one time at her place of employment, a store. She felt comfortable enough to say, Vincent, you wouldn't believe. I know your background, but you wouldn't believe, and told me the story. And I reached out to my friends and said, holy shit. This is happening in Maysville? You've got to be kidding. Maysville is even smaller than Cameron. And you also have on the news as of lately, not one, not two, but now three in Kansas City area. We've got the homecoming queers. They're not queens. They're men that are dressed like women. They are queer. So I don't call them the homecoming queens. I call them the homecoming queers because that's what they are. They're wanting to be a girl, and they're boys. They got that thing between their legs. They're a biological boy, and they're taking the girls' rite of passage to be the homecoming queen for the school, to represent the school, and all of these silly. And I've reached out to 2 out of 3. I won't even discuss it anymore. I can't. It makes my stomach churn. These authors, these journalists, these reporters who are investigating, getting these stories, every single one of them know about what happened 1 year ago in Cameron, or know of it 1 year ago about a girl who took the rite of passage of the boys. Natalie, who went by the name of Arthur, and the kids all took control of the school and voted that as King Arthur of Cameron with the court jesters of Cameron. Again, the kids voted this girl in to be the king. Folks, we have got to take control of our children in our homes. We've got to take control of our children in our schools. And technically speaking, just like the politicians, the teachers work for us. No, they don't answer to us, but technically they do. They do work for us. They are supposed to, we should know that our kids are getting educated and not indoctrinated. We should know that our kids are learning arithmetic and not homosexuality. We should learn that our kids are learning English and not going to that safe space to dress up and be a little fairy somewhere. It's wrong. No matter what way you cut it, it is 100% wrong. They allow books on sex, pornography, homosexuality, whatever, rapes, assaults, gangbangs. In case anyone doesn't know what that means multiple people, multiple young men usually, or men, assaulting one girl. And they take Bible, Torah, and the Quran. Granted, we may not like the Muslims across the board, which to me is wrong. To just group and lump everyone into one category is completely wrong. It's called prejudice. They want to say that it's racist or what have you, but I myself, it's prejudice. You can't lump everyone. You can't say all the Jewish people are. I've got a buddy of mine. He's so tight with a penny. I told him he makes a Jewish, and I've got Jewish friends that loved when I said this, by the way. I had said so. I said, you make a Jewish person look like a philanthropist. You're so tight with your money. It's a joke. It's not to offend Jews. It's not to offend him. It's a joke. And again, my Jewish friends are like, really, Vince? You got to be kidding me. Come on, guys. Man, you know as well as I do. You're good at saving money. You're good at accounting. You're good at what you do with your money. You are good stewards of your money. You're thrifty. You look for the sales. You look for the bargains. You look for the best bang for the dollar. And they know that I respect them. They know that. My friend, on the other hand, that's the funniest thing he's heard. And he, of course, is a white Caucasian, half German, half French, I think. And his mom and dad were like my mom and dad. I had very good extra parents in my lifetime. I also, like my son, had some good people in my life. Mr. and Mrs. Hanlon, I remember Mr. Hanlon saying always, there's always room for another at the table. In other words, you may have to eat less, but you're going to share that with the party that just came in and is hungry. Mr. Favreau, oh, God love him. Eileen and Ed Favreau, another pair of parents that I had in my life that I do feel were like my mom and dad. They were great people. They've long since passed, both Don and Dorothy and Ed and Eileen. But I learned some great things from them. And these were families, folks. Think about this. These were families that were willing to accept this lug nut, this mutt, this mutton head. They were willing to allow me in their home, know that I was a troubled child or a troubled man in some cases, and make me part of that family. That's what families used to do. They used to interact with other families. They used to interact with other children of other families because they wanted to know that their kids were hanging out with the correct or right element. They wanted to know that they were not going to be kids that were for instance, if my mom and dad, and they were somewhat like this for sure, they wanted to make sure I didn't hang around with the thugs, with the goofballs, with the garbanzo beans, with the kids that's only going to get me in trouble with the law or get me in trouble with my teachers, get me in trouble with the principal. My parents wanted to know that I hung around with good kids. And, for the longest time now, 2.5 years, I started watching news, like eating it. I mean, eating it. And I realized it is the fractured foundation of family. It's where families are not bringing other families into their tribe, into their circle. They're not bringing the children in with their children to make sure that those kids are doing the right thing. One weekend they might go fishing, and next weekend they might go camping. Another weekend they might just play video games, I guess. There's nothing I think wrong with that. Or maybe to my son, play Pokemon. I'm not a big fan of Pokemon. I don't know anything about it. But it was a game that I just never quite understood. Yet my son, 34 years old, has Pokemon cards. In fact, he even said Christmas, Thanksgiving, don't go too far ahead, Vince, for Halloween. His wife said, let's go pick up a couple bags of candy. He said, no. She said, why not? He said, why make the kids fat? Why make them super hyperactive? Why rot out their teeth? That's my son's way of thinking. And I'm so proud again. I love that about him. Instead, he went out and bought like $20 worth of Pokemon cards. So when you go to his house in Augusta, Georgia, North Augusta, Georgia, I'm not going to give anyone any address, but when you go to his house, instead of giving candy that is unhealthy, candy that will rot the kids' teeth, harm the children actually, kids can get candy every day of the week from mommy and daddy or grandma and grandpa, uncles, aunts, whatever. They can go to the store and get it. He's going to give them Pokemon cards. Who knows? It may be something like a Pokemon card that will change that kid's life and make that kid say, you know what? I think I can get into this game. And it won't harm them, at least to my knowledge. I mean, unless you're really good at, throwing the card and you cut someone's face with it. I don't know. I'm just thinking of that one movie about the magician, the 4 Horsemen of Magic, I think it was, something like that. Great movies. But seriously, I'm very proud of my son for doing that or thinking like that. Like at Christmas, you can go to the dollar store, pick up Matchbox cars for the boys, and you can pick up, a little pony for the girls instead of candy. Again, it was very duly noted from Don Corleone. He made a very good point when he said it's that RD40 and the I think it was a red 30, something like that. I honestly can't imagine. Okay, here you go. Chad was laughing about, I guess the kids watching sports with you also makes them want to go play them though. And he's right. And he said, hockey around here, guess what? There's a thing called street hockey. Chad, I know I played street hockey. It's a little ball instead of a puck. And the nice part about that little ball, it does not hurt you near as much. You're not on ice and you might get a gash on your face from a skate, and you won't get a stick in the, well, you could get a stick in the face, I guess. That's a lumps. But you're not going to have that puck gumming at you, bruising you in the rib cage, knocking out your teeth or blackening your eye, breaking your nose, so on and so forth. But you can play street hockey in Florida. Oh, here we go. Is in their juices, pizza rolls, etc. Rightly said, I don't even crack a beer open until a kid. There you go. You give yourself a treat when your kids are in bed. And right now, they are only this age for so long. So enjoy it. I like this man's thinking. I mean, he's giving some good common sense parenting. I'm proud to be putting these up right now. I drink beer before the kids go to school. He had seizures before he was able to eat. And again, Chad, you know yourself that your son, obviously having seizures, he's got medical issues, problems. And you're working with that. I know you are. Oh, he says down in Florida, though, Cursive is still in his kid's school. That's very good. Oh, here we go. That's so sad. Ours had seizures as well. It's super scary. Oh, I can only imagine how frightening it is for a parent to look at their child doing, I'm going to say it as such, the crappie flop on the carpet. It's got to be horrific. And the other thing is, and let's face it, nowadays there has been so much introduction from the foods to the drugs, pharmaceuticals in particular, that have altered the genetics, the DNA structure of your actual parenting. You know what, Chad, would you like to come on and join me on this? Just give me a thumbs up or a wave. Yes? Okay, there we go. I'm going to bring Chad in because Chad, I think, has probably firsthand, and I thank you, Chad. And I think, I've been reading your comments, so it's not like well, purpose. I'm just I'm sharing the information you're offering. And Chad, by the way, everyone, this is Chad Candy. He's my charming clown. I love him. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You were on last night. You just have to come on again tonight. This is wonderful.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's Chad, by the way, folks, if you're not aware of this, Chad is also on a show called Truck It. And he's with Mama Sally. And Chad, if we could continue in this conversation, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more, I believe you have information that people with children that have handicaps, you may be.
My son, he has epilepsy, but he doesn't have the kind, like you said, the floppy crappie or whatever you said.
Crappie flop.
Yeah. When you have a grand mole and well, most of his are blackouts.
No, most of his are grand mal seizures.
Okay, my wife says most of his are grand mal seizures, but still, I guess it's kind of good.
What is the definition of a grand mal seizure?
The one that has the crappie floppy or whatever you call it.
Okay.
Think of when somebody says seizure.
Yeah, what you think of when somebody says seizure?
Okay. I think automatically of Animal House, the way they were dancing, going on the floor with their bellies kind of like a fish on the floor. We can make light of that, of course, with Animal House, a great movie. But the reality is, it is in many people's homes, not everyone's homes, but a lot of people deal with this.
Oh, I have it. My wife has it. My son has it. My daughter doesn't. So I'm hoping she'll grow up to be a neurologist so we can get, since she already knows so much about them, because she can already tell if somebody's having a seizure. what to do and everything. So,
And that's probably would be a great it would probably be a good thing for her if she has the passion and the heart and the compassion for her to get into the medical field to help the family and to help others in need.
well, I don't think she's looking at it to help the family or anything. We don't have them that much anymore, unless somebody runs out of their medication or something. And with the way that they crack down on drug stuff, it's hard to get medication sometimes on time anyway.
So you do find that medications do help yourself and your.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's one thing whenever people always talk about, well, there's a holistic way to deal with it. Gosh dang. There might be, but it's hard to find that holistic way whenever you're just trying different stuff. So, and epilepsy medication's kind of the same way. There's just a narrower path you got to. This is the third plane that's flown over my house that must be Navy in the last hour or so. Unless they're just doing touch and goes, they're all coming in at different angles though. So,
well, they are preparing, and I think you would agree with me. Our nation is preparing. We're going.
I agree with that.
We're going to battle, no doubt about that.
And I've already seen all kinds of things that, like you said, you're paying attention to that news. And
Chad, it's true. I've changed my format a little bit. I think, God, I think you've heard me say this before. I know I've used this quote at least once in one of my programs, you know that I love my quotes. But Mark Twain said the two most important days of your life is the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And I think I figured out why April 14th when I found out that I had a son. My life went upside down, inside out.
I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I just all I want to do is try to help children get a good education, because I believe, this is my belief, the children are our future.
Well, you can't just, when it comes to kids, like with the differences between my son and daughter, you can't just put them on an equal line and be like, oh, well, they're misbehaving. It must be the parents' problems or something like that, because kids act different. And that's what I was saying about my son versus my daughter. And I mean, you can blame it on the medication they're getting. And I agree with Dion about the foods they eat and stuff like that. But, my son's always acted like that to a point. So, and part of it probably is the medication. But there's not much you can do that even holistic stuff isn't going to just affect that. So when you're taking epilepsy medication, it's affecting your brain, and there's going to be side effects of other stuff it affects other than just the epilepsy.
So as a parent, when you heard that your son, and you said he placed himself into the padded room, he was having problems, correct?
Oh yeah. He ran out of his medication today and was being a butthead at school, and then went into the padded room and then told the teacher to let him out. And the teacher didn't even tell him to go in there.
So obviously he's smart enough or cognitive enough to understand that he's having a moment, or about maybe to have a moment.
Well, he goes into like a tantrum, and then you have to get him calmed down enough to stop, which is another thing. And I've even had problems with my friends about that. Is they're like, well, go whoop his ass. Well, that don't do anything to him. That just makes him madder for longer. And
well, what about the other children, though? I mean, let's say the children that don't have seizures, that don't have a reason to have the temper tantrums, flying off the handle, so on and so forth. How are teachers, and really how are parents, since the government can, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you were, and I know you're going to give me an example of this, by the way, I vividly remember you telling me a story. If your child says that he's been beat by you, they're going to come visit you. I think it's Division of Family Services or the Child Protective Services.
Yeah, DCFS or something like that. Department of Children and Family Services. So CPS, DCF.
They've got a lot of different names of cars.
Whatever.
Right. They all do basically the same thing. They're there for the children because they're there to protect the children from the parent or what have you. How are we going to change the course of behavioral problems with children in school? Just across the line, normal behavioral problems.
Well, one thing that you're going to have to do is get more. Well, like our school here, they have a pretty good. He goes to a special school because of his behavior, but the school he goes to is special for that reason, that they have counselors and everything else on there that can calm the kids down, or call the parents. Like Kim gets a call usually every other day, depending on how Austin's behaving, with like an update on how he's doing in school. So whether he did his homework or, and then when he ran out of his medicine the last 2 days, she's got a call both days. Today he was really bad in school, but really good on the bus. So, and then I don't know how many times the bus he's on, since it comes from that school, I don't know how many times the bus has had to turn around and go back to take kids back to the school. Or I think I told you the other day about how one of the kids was being so bad and two of them were getting into fights, and they had the sheriff's department come onto the bus and talk to the kids. Luckily it wasn't my son, but some kids, and this is something I never would have really believed until I had a kid that acted like that, well, if you whoop their ass, then they'll start listening. Well, I guess it's kind of like whenever you're older and you keep locking somebody up in prison and say, well, if you lock them up enough, they'll learn.
That's funny you say that, because I was just, I had a situation happen literally recently. A friend of mine, I won't tell you how close I am to the individual, but just the same, a cousin of theirs. About a year ago, I'll call him Mike. Just a real sweetheart of a guy. Anyway, Mike is what I call the town clown drunk loser. He's a bozo. Okay. He's a nice guy. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When he's Mr. Hyde, all you want to do is hug him. When he's Dr. Jekyll, all you want to do is throttle him. Or in my case, when someone gets that drunk, I get away from them. So about a year ago, he had asked me one evening, hey, Vince, what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. And this guy, Mike, the sweetheart, turned around and I said, well, what's going on with you, Vince? I said, well, blah, 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 my podcast, blah, 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 political, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, is that what you talk about? I'm like, yeah. Pretty much, because it's like the most important thing to me right now, where our country's going, headed with all the carjackings, with all the thievery, with all the muggings, with all the rapes, with all the murders. This is important to me. Well, I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, okay, fine. And I never talked to him again.
If somebody doesn't want to talk to me about politics, that's okay. I can find other stuff to talk about. But if you're just going to straight out outcast me just because I talk about politics.
Well, and so since he knew he didn't want to talk about politics, I figured I can't talk about drinking. I don't have anything for game and sports. I don't watch the Redskins. Oh, what are they called? Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't watch it. Well, I was thinking their uniforms are red. So anyway, I don't watch the Chiefs. I don't watch the the Royals. I don't watch sports. So he's all into that. I'm not. And so I just said, I have nothing to say to him. We've got nothing in common. And I walked away. Well, last night, I happened to go into a bar where Mike, the sweetheart, was. And I was making a general statement to a couple of the guys there. Hey, check this out. So-and-so is signing this paper, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, for some reason, this drunken fool thinks I actually said something to him. But what was really bad about it was this, Chad. He followed me out to my truck, and he was threatening me. You got something to say? I don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. I don't want
to hang around places with drunks like that. That's why I usually drink at home.
Well, I turned around, and then I got in my truck, And the next thing you know, he's standing next to my window and he punches the window. Now, I will tell you, my gun was in my hand. Had he broken the window, I think you know what would have been the next thing. I'm defending myself. I've got the truck running. It's in gear. I don't need it to get loose because he knocks me in the head and I may kill an innocent standby. I'm going to just turn around and take care of the matter myself because he's attacking me, which is called self-defense. He's drunk.
Right.
Chances are I'm not going to be able to take this idiot down. But if I have to kill him, I will. This, by the way, happens to be one of my friend's closest cousins. I'll leave it at that. And they, of course, really don't get how I feel about drunks, which is, in my opinion, in public, 0 tolerance, especially when they're violent. I love people that are drinking and have fun. I've been around drunks, and I love them. Some of them can be so much fun. Others can be such horrible.
Well, I could see that with some of them drunks. I know how some drunks can be, and I try not to be. I just get really sarcastic, so I might get in trouble if I'm really drunk. You've seen me pretty drunk before, so.
Yeah, but that's rare. I mean, it's not all the time. It's not every day. And the thing is also, thank goodness there's about 1,400 miles to divide us. It's easy to just go to the studio, click out or turn off the phone and hang up. But seriously, how is it that we're supposed to identify with one another, or when in some cases you just don't want that person in your life? You try to be respectful. You don't even acknowledge them. I never have said hello to this guy again since then. I've got nothing to say to him. And yet, I guess he loves me so much. He wants my attention. He chases me down saying I was talking to him. And I never said a word. In his head, I was talking to him, I guess. I don't know. This is what a grown-up is now after all these years. And by the way, this would be, I guess, typically a normal person, we'd say, in society. What is society going to be like 30 years from now after I'm dead? What are the kids going to do? Are they going to be killing each other left and right, or what?
Well, kind of, probably. I think it'll be something else something will cause a tipping point, just like with the crack epidemic and just like with meth to a point, and you'll have another generation that'll either endorse it or hate it. Like, I don't hear that much about crack where I live at now.
Well, I don't want to get too far off topic. You talk about the drugs and the alcohol, but what I'm trying to say is social interaction. If you can't socially interact as an adult in your 50s and 60s, and alcohol happens to be the problem or drug of choice for that moment or in that situation, what are these kids that are growing up? What are they going to be doing?
There's been drunks around for centuries, dude.
I know that. But what I'm saying is, how are these kids in education going to learn to say, hey, you know what? We have to be a little wiser in our decision.
Well, with stuff like alcohol, it's experience.
Okay.
I mean, experience and knowledge. I mean.
And do you think our kids across the board are getting knowledge, at least to have a foundation?
I'm saying knowledge is in experience and knowledge. Like, hey, these 3 kids were killed from drunk driving. And then it's kind of like, I'm not drunk driving. And say maybe one of them's their friend, or they know somebody that's been killed from drunk driving, or they themselves has been arrested for drunk driving. And I mean, it's, yeah, exactly, Dion. That's what I was saying the other night.
Well,
but exactly as what I'm saying is whenever you people learn not to drive drunk, it's because, well, for one, say you have a nice car, you don't want to get pulled over driving drunk and lose your license to where you can't drive your car. And that's how I learned, is I didn't ever want to go to jail for drunk driving because I never wanted to lose my license or have to put up with any or go to jail either. So,
the thing is, as I was, started out this program talking about my community, and you and I have had this discussion, And true, I agree with you. It's nice to hear the news. Past 2 weeks, there's been zero about America. Technically, I
Well,
mean,
there has been, depends on where you look at, but
yeah,
yeah.
there's not much out there about America. It's everything's about the Middle East and what's happening over there, and I can get that to a degree. Um, but again, I look at I'm thinking in terms of the medications, the foods, the diets, the so-called all these medical issues, problems in some
Well,
cases children have. Yeah, I really think that we need to work with as parents a lot closer with teachers to help them have a better understanding of what our children are about.
well,
And
you're
to
talking
take-
about medication, just like Dion said right there. He said, and back in the 80s, and I'll say the 90s too, they pushed Ritalin. It was pharmaceutical grade meth. And yeah, that's true. And then you had parents stealing their kids' pills and everything else. And see, that was something that they pushed everywhere was Ritalin for everything, and everything. You didn't have autism and stuff back then. Everything was ADHD, which is what they prescribed Ritalin for. And probably out of 5 of my closest friends, 4 of them were on Ritalin.
Now I think I know why my mom is upset and doesn't like me. There was a time I had temper tantrums, right? And they gave me Dilantin, which is a seizure medication. Didn't do anything for me. 2 weeks later, I'm like, I ain't taking this crap. I wonder if my mother thought by getting me drugs, she could enjoy them.
I
And
don't
not
think
really, I mean,
most seizure medications are not the type that you would enjoy, to be honest with you.
right. But the ADHD, oh, by the way, here you go. ADHD, personal joke, folks. I'll probably be black and blue by the end of the show. But there's Adderall, is it? I think it's
Adderall is one
Adderall.
of them.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
yet
I'll
I
start
think I
doing it just
remember I've heard of college students, and I may
yeah,
be wrong,
Adderall is one of them.
that they
And see,
like to.
that's whenever they were talking about whenever, and I know I'm going to go off topic just for a second here. That's whenever they were talking about all these people in Gaza not being able to get their medicines. That's what they've had a lot of their Hamas soldiers or whatever you want to call them amped up on is Adderall and Ritalin. So that's a lot of the drugs they can't get is being amped up on Adderall and Ritalin.
Wow. Wow.
So
Something I haven't done in a while, folks. Smoke a cigarette during a program. I see Chad smoking. I'm like, I'm gonna
yeah, I'm
join
a
the
freight train
bandwagon.
over here when I'm on a damn program. Sorry.
Well, I will tell you, Chad, last night, Paul Venable drove up at the last minute, got here to the school board, spent the night here at my home. We had a wonderful morning, cooked breakfast, and so on and so forth. And it's wonderful to know that a man who wants to be in political office is coming so far out of his way to address issues of our community. And whereas we have elected officials who are holding their noses high in the air and closing their eyes. In fact, I had written another little type of thing. I wanted it to be more like a rhyme. Let me ask you how this sounds. But the silent ministers with blind eyes accept those groomers who are teachers in disguise. I don't understand how ministers can say the grooming of our kids is okay. I don't want to talk about it. I don't get it. Aren't they supposed to be a part of the community? Because not only education is important, but the fundamental foundation of some form of moral fiber is
I
important.
can still hear you. I'm gonna step off the camera for a second, but I can still hear you.
Right on.
But I don't understand that either.
Folks, it's getting near the end of the show. I'm glad that Chad stepped on. I really had hoped maybe someone would say, hey, I'm going to come. I want to talk. I want to pop on here. And believe me, anytime you want to, if I don't have a guest, of course, for the evening, I would like very much for you to reach out and say, hey, I want you to come on and, share with me some of the concerns that you have. Let me know what's troubling you, or you know, I just um, feel as though that it's about time that we turn around and realize that it's up to the parents to get more involved with their kids' education. Plain and simple. Plain and simple.
And I would still like to say at my kid's school, the teachers and parents stayed very involved with everything going on at that school or those schools, just to be honest with you.
Okay. Well,
Let's see how many times. To be honest with you, it's chilly out here. To be honest with you, there's a bunch of planes that's been flying over. To be
please be
honest
fake.
with you, my power windows aren't working in my truck right now.
And to be fake with you, Chad, I'm going to wind this down. I want to let everyone know I'm going to be possibly being interviewed by a radio station
Cool.
very soon. I'm hoping very soon. Paul Venable has set this up with me. He right now is on a radio station since September the 18th. And he's been discussing with this broadcaster. He's been discussing between the two of them. They've been talking in depth about the Bill of Rights, the articles, articles of the Bill of Rights, and talking about, of course, the Constitution, so on and so forth. So I will tell you, I'm looking forward to that possibility, and I will let all of you know when that interview is supposed to be aired. I do believe that they do the interview, they edit it accordingly, and then they, of course, and it's professionally done, obvious. It's kind of like, this is going to be like a Rush Limbaugh moment for me, I think. I don't even know the man's name, believe it or not. I don't know the man's name, and I kind of like it like that, you know? So kind of like you and I have, or like I've always told you, a lot of the guests I've had on, and I mean there's so much respect for all of their valued knowledge and experiences that they've shared with me personally as well as with the viewing audience. So all I can say is I'm looking forward to that situation, Chad. I really truly am.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I just know one thing. There's a reason why, for instance, yesterday I was given that information about that 14-year-old boy that hung himself. I'm quite confident he wasn't sexually harassing that girl. I mean, I'm like positive because when you're a freshman, you're what, 14, 13, 14, you're playing still, aren't you? I mean, I was.
I don't know.
You kind of know right from wrong. It's in front of everyone. I don't think he was really trying to do the girl harm.
Probably not.
And yet he hung himself. This is where we're at today, man. This is what
has happened through. I really think that kind of stuff has happened more than we realize, to be honest with you. Every time I say, to be honest with you, Vince is going to slap himself.
Eventually, I will stop. That's supposed to be a Chad slap, and he's supposed to get the slap. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I miss the good old days of panty raids and wedgies. Remember the wedgies?
In the 80s, when I went to summer camp, we used to do panty raids.
What is a panty raid?
You go in and steal the girls' panties.
Oh. Well, maybe the wedgies are worse then. I don't know. It made a lot of boys. It made a lot of boys' voices that were now beginning to get deeper, a little higher. You know, because the wedgie kind of lifted everything up, pulled it all into a different place. You know, but where is the fun? Where is the laughter? Where is the Oh yeah, right. Yeah, right. Of course you weren't. You were always the perp. Sure. Yeah.
We didn't do wedgies that much, so.
Oh, we did. And we also did a lot of streaking.
We didn't do a lot of streaking either because and even Florida would be even more because if you go streaking in Florida, you don't know what's going to get you. So.
Well, times have changed. It used to give you a good laugh, and everyone, of course, knew who you were. I mean, I went to a military school, so streaking was very common. In fact, even Ray Stevens wrote a song about, oh yes, they call him the streak. Woo! Look at that! Look at that! Fastest thing on 2 feet.
I remember that. I remember that being on that song being on. Who is it? What company used to put out all those records and stuff like that, and it'd be like a mix of old songs, and that song would be on the commercial.
I think you're right. There was
It was like Time
it was a
Life
spoof.
Classics or something like that.
Yeah, and it was a spoof.
No, it was a real song.
No, I know, but I'm saying they were using it as a spoof, as a joke, as a something.
Yeah, well, they were using it. They'd go and play all their classic songs or some of their classic songs that you'd want to buy. So,
wow, spoof. That word is now used in telephone communications because
that's
people are.
too.
Yeah, that's a word that changed. Words are changing as I'm living, and I'm like, I'm not, again, it's going to go back. I want to go back to the old Sally and Tina days for the moment of living in a Dr. Seuss world, and we're living in a up world.
Yeah.
We really, truly are. Listen, Chad, I greatly appreciate it. 2 hours are about coming to an end. What do you think? Call it a night?
Call it a night. Don't forget you got a outro to play too.
Oh, hey, folks, we're doing things a little bit differently here. In fact, I didn't even get to do my man Russell Hughes's song, but we're gonna keep it short and sweet. I'm so proud of the help I've been given, and I mean this, the help that I've been given, and we're blessed with some of the people that are in our lives here on the network. Please follow the logbook with Kimberly and Dakota Moyers and little Baby B. We love Baby B. Please consider watching the Truck It. Always good for a laugh, always good for a plethora of, between Sally and between Chad together, Chad, you are like the fountain. She is like the water, and you guys are like the fountain of useless information. But it's fun, factual information across the board.
I meant to say before I left too, sometimes you just got to say, truck it.
Ooh. Yep. That's it.
I'm out.
That's their out. All right, Chad. Thanks, brother. I am going to do this song. You've heard it before, but you've got to stay for the outro. I'm so proud of it. Voraciously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for letting me vent. I may even be changing the name of the show just because I seem to be venting lately a lot. A lot to say about things, but please, if nothing else, like the Common Denominator Network is supposed to represent, folks, we do have more than things that are in common. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you very much. We do have more in common than we don't. And sometimes when we don't have that thing in common, it's okay to just walk away, never to talk to that person. And let's just hope that they're not so stupidly drunk that they chase you down, thinking that you said something to them when you never even said hello. And you get yourself into a life-threatening situation. It could be a very ugly situation. Here's Russell Hughes. Good night, and wait for the outro. You're going to love it. I promise you that.
The song is for all Americans. I just wrote this last night. Well, some say I'm troubled. Some say I'm extreme. 'Cause I love this country and the American dream. And I'll let no politician tell me what to do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, I was raised country with work on my hands. Well, you respect your neighbor neighbor and you respect the land. And I let no president tell me what to do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, my blood runs red, white, and blue. Yeah, Daddy taught me right from wrong. When to be humble and when to be strong. And I'll fight for freedom if that's what I must do. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Now Papa's passed while I was off to war. And this country's changing, it ain't the same anymore. But I'll fight for freedom, yes, I'll fight for you. 'Cause my blood runs red, white, and blue. Hope you like it. Keep the faith, brothers. Stand strong. Fight for freedom.